August 22nd, 1944. Outside Dreux, France. Dawn bruises the eastern horizon into a thin purple line as a gray column snakes along a hedge-road lane. Clattering sprockets, the wet cough of a Maybach HL-230, the hiss of steam from a ruptured radiator. A German colonel, field-gray greatcoat flapping at the thighs, stands half out of the turret of a Panzer IV with a pair of dusty Zeiss binoculars pressed to his eyes. To the west, beyond a curtain of morning mist, something glints. Rows of metal drums stacked like coins, tarps flapping, a forest of stakes and painted signs. He lowers the glasses, listens. Far off, a low rumble swells and breaks like surf. Trucks on a road, many trucks, their gears singing. "Abteilung, halt!" he orders, voice steady into the throat mic. The column wheezes to a standstill. Grenadiers in mottled smocks slide from the bed of a 3-ton Opel Blitz, boots sucking in the mud, fingers tight on their carabiner 98K. The colonel, 40-something, sharp cheekbones, and a furious economy in every movement, checks his map case. The night march from Chartres has been worse than any day in Italy. Allied fighter bombers own the sky. Twice since midnight, they'd scattered off the road at the whine of P-47 Thunderbolts, faces pressed into the ditches as .50 caliber slugs stitched the hedges. They lost a half-track to a broken bridge, another to a thrown track. Fuel is at fumes. And now this, an American depot so close you can smell the petrol. Jagertrupp vor! A handful of men dash forward, phantoms in the sunrise, moving between hedgerows. The colonel thumbs the safety on his Walther P-38, but leaves it holstered. He rides the tension like a wire. Either they've blundered into a major base and today ends in smoke, or fortune, God, chance, anything has set down an oasis in this desert of petrol. They crest a shallow rise. Below, set along a secondary road that runs north-south, sits a U.S. Army POL dump, petrol, oil, lubricants, laid out with American neatness. Big hand-lettered signs, no smoking, and black stenciled codes on the drums, 80 octane, motor gas. A row of GMC CCKW 2.5-ton trucks sits with tailgates down, hoses curled like sleeping snakes. The sentries, 2 MPs with white helm covers, are smoking and arguing in the rattling, metallic drawl of Midwestern English. Somewhere, an M20 utility car idles, its radio aerial swaying. The colonel studies the perimeter. Barbed wire in places, but not continuous. American confidence. Their front is miles away. The road net, theirs. He signals. The squad fans left. 2 machine gun teams slink right with an MG-42 and spare barrels. The first shot will be the loudest thing anyone remembers. He lets the breath out, calm, and raises his arm. A gull cries, a tarp flaps. 1 MP steps to relieve himself against a drum. For a second, the colonel sees the entire war hinged on a bladder and a cigarette. Fire! The world erupts. The MG-42 coughs a ripping sheet of sound. The MPs pitch backward, 1 helmet cartwheeling. Grenadiers crash the wire with wire cutters and boots. A truck driver bolts. 2 shots. He falls. The few Americans here, drivers, depot clerks, scatter for a shallow pit. Someone yells, "Incoming!" though nothing yet falls from the sky. The colonel is already in motion, waving his men forward with clipped, surgical efficiency. "Nicht schießen! Han hook!" Hands go up, eyes wide. A corporal in a grease-stained HBT jacket, face paling under grime, stares at the German officer as if he'd stepped from a newsreel. The colonel sees a 45 ACP M1911 on the man's hip, sees the tremor in his hand as he unbuckles it and lets it thump into the dust. The colonel nods once. Gut. A lieutenant jogs up, breath visible in the chill. Herr Oberst, only light defense, 10 prisoners. We took the phone and the radio. There is fuel. Viel Benzin. His grin is a boy's for a moment. Wie viel? The colonel's voice is arid. Numbers are everything. The lieutenant leads him between the stacks. The smell is intoxicating. Gasoline sharp as apples. Oil warm and metallic. Rope tar. Damp Hessian. Drums, drums, drums. 5-gallon jerry cans by the hundreds. The American kind, copied from their own German pattern. Welded seams, tidy and thick-handled. The lieutenant taps a clipboard torn from a desk, American forms on top. 2,000 drums, rough count, plus bulk inflexible tanks. He points to dung-colored bladders under tarps. Herr Oberst, enough to run us to the Seine. For the first time in hours, the colonel's shoulders loosen. He brings the binoculars back up, scanning the roads. The low rumble he heard earlier is louder now, closer. He reads, on a road sign newly hammered to a post, a bright red circle with a white arrow, red ball. Beneath it, to chart. A symbol, a mere painted shape, but it tells him a book. He has heard the rumors Americans have made their own railways on rubber, a one-way highway for gasoline. He sips the thought like bitter coffee. If this is a feeder dump and not the river, then upstream there is a flood. Get the trucks in. I want every GMC we still have filled, and the Panzer first. The colonel walks to the prisoners. Wie lange, Sergeant? He asks in workable English. How long since last convoy? The sergeant, red hair under shock, freckles fanned across dirt, gathers himself. Every hour, give or take, he says. Because he is proud or because he believes he is stalling, the colonel cannot tell. We call it red ball, he adds, as if reciting a catechism, eyes flicking toward the painted sign. The colonel imagines a map. Le Havre, Cherbourg, beaches turned ports, roads painted with arrows, military police waving trucks with white gloves, black drivers from far-off American cities. He's seen them behind the wheels, eyes straight ahead, jaws set. He pictures an endless red bead chain of trucks, each bead 100 gallons, each hour another river. A thunderclap rips the sky. Someone shouts, men flinch. For a heartbeat, the colonel thinks aircraft, drops from fear into action, scanning the horizons for specks of sunlight twisting on wings, but it is only a canvas falling from a flexible tank, slapping the ground. He swallows the adrenaline, tastes iron. Luftwarnung bleibt, he orders, a standing air warning. 2 men set a captured Browning M2.50 on a tripod from a truck bed. Discipline turning improvisation into doctrine. They work like ants. Drums roll, jerry cans form bucket brigades, hoses snake from bladders to steel throats, tanks glug and breathe. The depot becomes a machine with no commander, just hunger. The colonel walks it, the way a farmer checks a fence, catching slack. There, a kink in a hose. There, a truck without a ground wire sparking on metal. There, a man who looks too long at the horizon. He collars a private who stands staring. You will roll, not stare, he says, not unkindly. Roll your war. The private nods, swallows, puts his boots to a drum. He pauses by the map board, American grease pencil lines marking routes. Saint-Lô, Isny, Avranches, Chartres, Dreux, Versailles, arteries and veins. He traces a finger along the arrow that points past Dreux into Paris. So this is what it looks like when an empire breathes. Not a mystic thing, not fate. Fuel, thrown forward by a nation that has factories for breakfast and steel for lunch. Time, he asks, and the lieutenant answers.
20 minutes to get the first panzer moving, an hour to clear their column through on 100 drums, 2 to drain the bladders. The colonel does the math against the roar that is now not just on the edge of hearing, but coming, a low growl like thunder, constant, layered, almost geological. He steps onto the road. It vibrates under his boots.
Around the bend, with the confidence of a king on his own land, comes a string of GMC trucks, canvas tops humped, drivers dark-eyed behind windshields. Military police on Harley-Davidsons lead them, white gloves pointing, whistles chirping a syncopated baton. Red ball signs stud the verge. The American convoy commander sees the raised palms and the loose wire and the helmets that are not his. He lifts his arm and everything slows. The colonel's mind recording the micro-movements, the MP's eyes widening, the lead driver's jaw dropping, a private reaching for a Thompson. The colonel hears his own voice as if through a wall. Feuerverbot! Cease fire! Nur Gefangennahme! Only capture. He knows what he wants, the trucks, not a firefight that will bring the sky down. His men flood the road, rifles up, but not barking, jaws clenched, the geometry of force well understood. The lead MP, to his credit, stops the Harley with a judder, boots down, hands up. The trucks bump to halts, air brakes sighing like cattle. 100,000 gallons of war sits humming 10 meters from his fingers. The colonel walks to the first GMC and looks up at the driver, an African-American kid, 20 maybe, sweat-glossed, Napoleon blue eyes under the shadow of his helmet. The kid stares back. For an odd moment, they both smile. Two professionals seeing the other's work. Then the kid's face shudders. The colonel taps the dashboard, points to the fuel, then to his own column. Danke, he says softly. Then in English, wir take, you stay. He cuts the ignition. The growl of more trucks rolls up the road like a storm tide. The colonel understands at last that the sound will not stop. You could shut down this dump, and there are 10 more behind it, identical, waiting, moving, inevitable. He feels a clean, unadorned emotion crack through him. Not fear, not admiration, something like comprehension. His war, based on nerve and art and the violent speed of armor, has met a different kind of speed. He turns, raises his hand to wave the first captured truck into line behind the Panzer IV. Los, he says softly. The truck lurches, and the column starts to move. August 22nd, 1944. Dreux Chartres Road, France, late morning. The road east rolls under hard sunlight, the hedgerows drawing ragged lines of shadow across the tarmac. The German column, Panzer IV, 2 Jagdpanzer IV, a wounded SDKF 251, half a dozen Opel Blitz, a flak wagon with a twin 20mm, now trundles with a tail of captured GMC CCKWs groaning behind it, canvas roofs billowing, American stenciling stark as billboards. Inside the first truck, the colonel sits shotgun with the captured American driver in the back under guard, the engine's heat flooding his boots, the smell of gasoline a constant rasp at the back of his throat. Every 20 seconds he checks the side mirror, watching the geometry of his own power. German armor, head, American belly full of fuel, German tail of weary men and worn rubber. He forces himself to see as a staff officer, not what he wants to see, but what is. Each GMC holds roughly 700 liters in cans, more if the bed's stacked to canvas height. The flexible bladder from the depot fed 3 vehicles before they slashed it to quicken their escape. At their present consumption, he runs the numbers like a catechism. They can get the armor to the next river, perhaps beyond. But the sound in the distance is the problem, and it does not fade. Convoys, more convoys. He has taken a ladle from a river that does not notice the dip. Luft! Someone shouts from a half-track, instinct blazing in the voice, and head snaps skyward. Two P-47 Thunderbolts carve a lazy S through blue, sunlight showing the checkerboard nose of the 78th Fighter Group, or maybe 362nd, it doesn't matter. The colonel reads them like he reads cats, quick, curious, cruel if needed. The German flak gunner lifts the barrels and tracks, but the colonel pumps his fist down. Halt! Shooting invites friends. The thunderbolts pass, waggle, and go hunting elsewhere, the way an eagle leaves a carcass when it has bigger carrion waiting. They roll into a fork where a red ball arrow points east with a cheerful certainty that makes the colonel's teeth ache. There is something so American about the sign, a child's red circle, a direction given as if the world were a polite city with streetcars running on time. He remembers the Africa Corps days, bleary mornings outside Tobruk, engines coughing, jerrycans as precious as wine. The British convoys raided at night, that feeling when a can slid into a cradle, the weight of it, 10 liters of tempo. Here in France, the Americans have made tempo a function, a factory output, as if they discovered a way to stamp speed into steel. At a culvert where the road kinks around a copse, the colonel waves the column to a halt and steps down into dust. He smells hot iron and petrol and sun-warmed hedgerow greenery crushed under treads. He hears the bells of a church somewhere, bells that have rung through Romans and fevers and kings, and now this. The American MP prisoners sit on the grass under guard, sharing a canteen with one of the colonel's lancer. The young black driver looks up when the colonel approaches, eyes that pierce rather than plead. "You gonna shoot us?" the kid asks in English that's more statement than question. His voice is steady. The colonel shakes his head. "No." Then, after a pause, "I need information." He crouches, his greatcoat pooling around his boots like a shadow. "How many trucks? How far the depots? Where the next dump?" He glances up the road. "We will be gone in minutes. This is not your concern." He tries to make it sound like mercy. It is, mostly. He has no time to be a monster. The kid's face makes a small change, a smile that isn't a smile, more an understanding. "Red ball don't stop, sir," he says, the "sir," despite everything, coming naturally, a habit of road courtesy. You cut one line, they open another. 2 lanes up, 1 lane back. MPs clear it all day. Hell, they build whole new roads by sundown. He nods at the captured trucks. "You can take these? We'll replace 'em by dinner." The colonel lets the statement settle like a stone in a pond. He feels the ripples. Built whole new roads by sundown. It is arrogance, and it is also possibly true. He has seen engineer battalions throw Bailey bridges in hours, a miracle he once thought German alone could work. He has watched Americans make airfields from wheat in a day, PSP, pierced steel planking snapping together as if Meccano. He remembers their QMC depots by Saint-Lô, pyramids of crates neat as an art installation. He remembers the traffic of their signal battalions, spools rolling, masts rising. It is as if every activity that wins a battle they have put on wheels and scheduled. From the hedges a figure emerges, mud-splashed, eyes shrewd, chevrons bright against faded HBTs, a U.S. staff sergeant who must have slipped the guard's attention or simply wandered in with the strange confidence that clings to this army. He carries no weapon, only a battered clipboard. "You boys lost?" he calls over, tone the precisely measured insolence of a man reassured by distance artillery, air support, and a payroll that pays on time. The German guards jerk rifles up, one cocks, the metal sound a knife in the air. The colonel lifts his hand. "Easy." "You are in my custody, Sergeant," he says, English dry as gravel. "Sit." "Sure, Colonel," an American says, and sits on the culvert as if it's a bench at a ball game. He looks around at the vehicles, counting with his eyes the way logisticians count, the way the colonel counts. He whistles. "Hell of a catch." The colonel surprises himself by answering honestly, "Yes." He looks again at the red ball arrow pointing east, and nothing. They refuel quickly. The line forms, drums roll, hoses gurgle. The colonel walks among the GMCs, hands skimming canvas, checking lashing, reading the stencil codes for octane and batch. On one tailgate, someone has chalked a nickname, Dixie Clover, and a crudely drawn four-leaf clover. On another, a dot and dash flourish, maybe a sweetheart's initials. He feels the hum of a nation through these trivialities, people who expect to go home to cars and jobs and roofs, who stand under a sky not ruined yet by the memory of hunger. When they move again, the colonel climbs onto the Panzer IV and stands in the commander's cupola, goggled against dust. He watches his line disappear around the bend, a German spear with an American spine, and thinks of rivers, the Seine, the Marne, the Meuse, each crossed or to be crossed, each a test of fuel and fear. From a pocket he pulls a creased OKH circular about fuel economy, matrix tables about idle smothering, carburetor needles, the bureaucratic incantations of a country running out of breath. He thinks of the bulge that will come, though he does not know its name, of plans that draw their power not from factories, but from capture. Benzin durch Kampf, fueled by battle. He senses the weakness in that hope, the way a doctor hears a failing heart, the rhythm wrong, the volume thin. They pass a burned-out M8 Greyhound on the verge, its tires puddled into black moons, the turret a charred tulip. There is no body, only the smell you do not forget. Two French farmers stand by, caps in hands, as if at a wake. The colonel nods, and they nod back, human to human. He wants to tell them that in a few days they will see an American column that does not end, that will scatter candy to children and pay for apples with crisp notes and build a bridge where there is none and talk to them halting and cheerful as they pass. He wants to tell them because saying it would make him a prophet instead of a retreating man. At a crossroads where a signpost points to Chartres, 21, Etampes, 33, the colonel orders a halt to recheck the air. Somewhere to the south, a rolling thunder announces U.S. artillery, not at them, not yet, perhaps on the far bank where Third Army is pushing east. He logs the sound. It is not a fact to fear, merely to accommodate. He angles the column onto a lesser road where the hedges thicken, the canopy tunnels. If planes come, they will come in twos and fours. They will whistle, and then the sky will splinter into machine gun rain and rockets with white tails. The captured American MP, freckled sergeant from the depot, speaks softly as he clambers into the back of a truck. "You know you can't keep this up, right?" It is not taunt, not threat, just a thing said because it is truer when spoken. The colonel, already turning to wave the line forward, stops. He answers without turning. "Neither can you," he says, "but your cannot is farther away." They drive. Noon bakes the hedges to fragrant breath. The men, even the prisoners, fall into that road trance soldiers know, the horizon as a metronome, the jolts and gear grinds a lullaby. By a field where the wheat lies flattened by tracked passage, a small boy waves a tricolor. An old woman lifts a hand like a papal blessing. The colonel tips his head. His world is ending with grace around it. In the side mirror he spots it, a tiny glint, a wink of sunlight in motion behind the third GMC. He knocks the hatch. "Stop!" The column breaks, rolling to a clumsy accordion. He strides back, boots biting dust. Under the canvased bed, someone has cut a night slice and lashed a jerry can to a tarpaulin strap, a siphon in the making. It is the MP with the freckles, hands innocent, Eyes not. The colonel points. The man shrugs. He says, "Habit. We call it midnight requisition. Nobody gets what they need. Everybody takes what they can." The colonel feels a laugh rise and lets it go. He says, "We are very alike." Then he rips the siphon free and tosses it, metal clanging in the ditch. But we are not the same scale. When they roll again, the road narrows between poplars, and the radio crackles with a report from the point. A U.S. roadblock ahead, 2 M3 half-tracks, a squad with Garans up behind sandbags, a 30 cal on a pedestal, and worst, an M8 with an SCR 508 antenna tall and confident. The colonel's brain downshifts. The column is long. Turnarounds are death. He has surprise and a minute. He steps onto the road, lifts his hand, and begins to rearrange the pieces.